Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and I'm taking care of business. Joining me today is Cody Battershill, who is founder of Canada Action. Thanks, Cody, for joining us today. And you folks put out an interesting survey today on Canadians and their support of the Canadian energy sector. 78% Canadians agree in supporting all Canadian energy. Can you talk a little bit about that number and why that's important?
Yeah, thanks, Mario, for having me today. Really important public opinion poll that we did across Canada, again, building on previous polls that we've done. And it shows consistent, stable, and even growing support for an all-inclusive strategy. Yes, we can support wind and solar. Yes, we can also support oil and gas. It does not have to be oppositional or polarized, because the global reality is we're going to need all of the above for decades and generations to come.
Why do you think the support is growing in this area?
I think that more Canadians are learning more about our oil and gas industry's commitment to climate leadership. We've been a leader in the world going back more than a decade, trying to reduce emissions, accurately assess our emissions, collaborate to innovate and protect the environment with clean technology investments and environmental protection investments. I think Canadians are also realizing that despite all of the rhetoric around Canadian pipeline opposition, we're seeing that none of those delayed or canceled projects have actually caused oil demand to decrease. Instead, it's caused other oil suppliers to benefit while Canadian communities and families suffer because we're not able to maximize the value of our resources. So I think there's hopefully more Canadians learning and joining in this less polarized conversation as we get back to a middle road. And it doesn't have to be anti-everything and know everything and shut everything down.
You know, Cody, I've been seeing a lot of things lately in terms of obviously what's happening in Ukraine and with the Russian military invasion and a lot of sanctions for Russia and oil there. And so there seems to be a growing movement of support for Canada to develop and export more of its oil.
Yes, more of our oil and gas, also more of our uranium and potash.
Yeah.
When we look at, there's a new term for ESG that I've been hearing: energy security guarantees.
Yeah.
And when we talk about Canada, traditionally ESG stands for environment, social, and governance. Well, on the E we win, on the S we win, and on the G we win. And now with what's happening in Europe, it's even more evident and top of mind that what you buy and who you trade with does matter. There are implications, and the world needs more Canadian energy. We need to build the infrastructure so we can export our oil and natural gas directly to Europe, to Asia, and to the entire world, rather than just keeping it within North America.
And I think, you know, just the other day, excuse me, Cody, the Montreal Economic Institute put out a release as well, I believe, just recently about the support for the oil and gas sector. And surprisingly, and maybe not so surprisingly, the support in Quebec was pretty decent, despite all you hear. I don't know if this survey of yours looked specifically into Quebec as well.
It was a national public opinion survey, and we do see growing support. When we cut all of the rhetoric and the misinformation and the polarization and the fear mongering from a lot of the anti-Canadian energy groups out of the equation, and when we just have conversations that are respectful and balanced and informed and factual, I think Canadians, when presented with that bundle of balanced information, realize that there is so much more to know and to appreciate about our industry's commitment to protecting people on the planet, including in Quebec. The Line 9 pipeline reversal allowed more Canadian oil into Quebec. That's a win for the environment and Canadian families. And if we had built Energy East, for example, we'd be using more of our own oil and we would have been able to export it to Europe. We need to figure out how we're going to move forward, treating our resources as the truly strategic asset that they are for the betterment of Canadians and the planet.
So one of the other things I was curious about from the survey was 75% of Canadians say the agriculture sector should be supported. Why do you think? Why do you think it's that high? Secondly, why do you think that sector should be supported more?
I mean, I think there's so much about our ag sector that isn't understood with, again, focus on reducing emissions and leadership on the environment and sustainability. And I really do think when we're talking about Canadian agriculture and food production, first and foremost, for Canadians to be seeking out and trying to buy Canadian food. Second, for us to make sure that we are protecting our export markets and diversifying our trade around the world. And that we are really going to bat for our farmers and growers and ranchers and food processors. There's a couple million Canadians that work in totality in this in our food industry. We're one of a few countries on earth that's a net exporter of food. And if all of a sudden you have a weather event or a geopolitical event, it just makes it even more apparent how important it is that we are maybe ready to fill in the gap or increase our production to help feed people around the world. And I think all elected leaders in this country can continue to band together to really publicly display their support, figure out how can we get more competitive, how can we get better pricing, how can we deal with some transportation bottlenecks, how can we recognize the environmental leadership that's happening. There's a lot there. I think our farmers would love to see even more support.
Okay, super. And Cody, just in the final thoughts here, can you maybe describe what Canada Action is and what you guys do?
Yeah, we're a nonprofit that proudly supports the development of our responsibly produced natural resources across the entire country, all provinces. We're pro-wind, we're pro-solar, we're pro-hydroelectricity, forestry, agriculture, mining, oil and gas, nuclear power, uranium mining, potash for fertilizer, for food, you name it. Canada is blessed with an abundance of resources. And when we have balanced and informed conversations, we all win. And when we get the best price for our resources on the global market, Canadians win. Resources are a fundamental part of our national prosperity. And we are feeding, powering, and building the world with the best climate, environment, and human rights standards. Clearly, for all of those reasons, the world needs more Canadian resources, and Canadians should be proud of the work we're doing to continually improve and to support prosperity in our local communities for our local families.
All right, super. Thanks, Cody, for joining us today.
Thanks, Mario. Always appreciate. Nice talking to you.
All right, super. That's Cody Battershill, who is the founder of Canada Action. I'm Mario Toneguzzi. This has been Taking Care of Business. Thanks for joining us today.